So now that we are done licensing our users, the next step is to get phone numbers and then assign to each of these users so they can be able to make and receive PSTN calls. Remember, we indicated earlier that even though each of these users have been enabled for enterprise voice, as we saw earlier when we checked using PowerShell, and they also have dial pads, they will not be able to make PSTN calls. For instance, in the case of this particular user, you can see that the user is having a dial pad, but then there is no phone number assigned to this particular user. And when you check using either the PowerShell or the Teams Admin Center, you will notice him just as we did earlier. And so this particular user will be limited in terms of making and receiving PSTN calls. And by PSTN calls, I mean calls that you make to from numbers that are on the public switch telephone network. Now, of course, you make to traditional phone numbers. Okay, so that is what leads us to our next discussion: types of phone numbers. Now, we have different types of phone numbers, but then in Microsoft Teams, currently when it comes to business voice, we have two types of phone numbers, and that is subscriber numbers, also known as user type numbers or service numbers. Okay, so subscriber numbers are numbers that you assign to your users so they can be able to make and receive PSTN calls. And service type numbers, on the other hand, are numbers you assign to your auto attendants, your call queue, your conference bridge. And service numbers can either be a toll-free number or toll numbers. Okay, so toll-free numbers are numbers that when they are called, the funding of the call is done by you, not the one that is calling. For instance, if you have set up a toll-free number within your organization and I am calling you through that particular number, the funding of the call will be done by you. So if I spend an hour, 2 hours, or 3 hours on the call with you, the funding is going to be done by you, not by me. But then on the other hand, toll numbers, I am the one that will pay for the calls. So how do we get phone numbers that we can either assign to our users or call queues or attend on a conference bridge? Currently, you can do that using the Teams Admin Center. So you can just acquire a phone number directly through the Teams Admin Center, or you can port one to Microsoft. Porting here, we are saying that, let's say for instance you were with Verizon and then you have a phone number. So Verizon was your service provider before you moved to Microsoft. Most of your customers, your partners, they know that particular number as the number that they can use to contact you on when they want to reach your business. And now that you've moved to Microsoft, it just makes sense that you'll be able to transfer that number to Microsoft, so we have business continuity. Transferring of the number from your existing service provider to Microsoft is what they are referring to here as a porting. So you can port your existing phone numbers to Microsoft and out of Microsoft. And the last option that we have is to raise a ticket with a TNS service desk, a Teams number service desk. Before now, this was known as a PTN desk. There are types of numbers that you may want to acquire, and you are not able to either get that directly through the Teams Admin Center, or you don't have it with your existing service provider before moving to Microsoft, and so you would want a special service in here. So you can just raise a ticket with the Teams number service desk and you will be assisted. Before now, we have what we call the number request form. Okay, but then that has been deprecated, and so you make use of the Teams Admin Center to raise a ticket with the TNS service desk, and then you'll be assisted on that. Don't worry, we're going to look at all of this shortly so you can have a proper understanding of what we're talking about. Right, so let's talk about this before we get into the configuration itself. That is emergency address. What are emergency addresses when it comes to Microsoft Teams, for that matter business voice? Emergency address helps the security agencies to quickly and swiftly respond to emergency situations. Okay, so when your employees or your users within your organization makes a call to the security agencies, let's say the fire and police service, the location of the business and where the call is emanating is sent to the security agencies so they can be able to quickly locate you and then come to your aid. Okay. In Microsoft Teams, every phone number that you have is supposed to be tied to a particular emergency address. This is why you need to create emergency address first.